Okay, got it. Okay. And then
Okay,
I'm going to share.
you're live.
Okay, great. And now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Here we
Thank you
go.
so much. Hi, Robin.
Fantastic. Yeah, so Robin, once I kind of go through the basic introduction, I'll go ahead and hand over to you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining today. Really excited. We have a special guest today and a very interesting presentation. Before we do that, I wanted to kind of open up by reminding everybody that we do follow the Linux Foundation antitrust policy. As you get involved with the SIG, as you get involved with our work, be sure to familiarize yourself with that. We also follow the Hyperledger Code of Conduct. Also something definitely to review for your participation within the special interest group and Hyperledger overall. I wanted to pause for a moment before we kind of kick it off and hop into things to see if there were any new people on the call today. Your first call with the Climate Action and Accounting Special Interest Group. Please feel free to just give a shout or raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you. Do we have anybody?
Okay, I guess I should do it.
Yeah. Please, I say yeah. Just maybe
so happy to be here.
And share a little bit about. Well, share. I'd like to hear just a little bit before you kind of hop into you be sharing overall, what you're doing, but would love to hear about at a high level what you're working on and from what you know about the SIG, how we kind of intertwine and how we play in the same sandbox.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much. I think I first got introduced to the work that you guys are doing through Robin, and I think with Robin we are sharing also a little bit of topics in common. So basically, my name is Lucas. The name sounds pretty German. I spent a few years in Germany. I originally come from France. I've been involved in the blockchain space since about 3 years, where I started Positive Blockchain as basically a movement or community, call it the way you want. Basically, it's a non-profit association exploring the application of blockchain for social and environmental good. And obviously today I'll share a little bit more about this. So my interest in that space has been really broad, but basically studying the interlink between the technology and the SDGs. So very broadly looking at a whole range of different use cases. I actually made it part of my day job because that used to be rather my night or weekend job in the past, but I'm making it my day job as well. So I stepped in as a lead Europe for Verity Tracking. It's a verified traceability solution for sustainability market. So what we're doing essentially is recording every carbon intensity related data throughout the value chain of crop-based biofuels. So biofuels as an example of a product that is highly relevant for the energy transition and clean technology in transportation, especially. Looking at the Europe, for example, we have biofuels accounting for about 3% of sustainable aviation fuels nowadays. And the Green Deal and the Fit for 55, so the climate packages from the EU, expect it to raise to about 63%. So 63% of the fuel from basically the aviation industry is going to be biofuel. But what does it mean biofuel? How carbon intense is biofuel? There are a lot of different technology with different feedstocks, crop-based or based on cooked oil and so on. And I think we need to see more transparency and more visibility in the carbon intensity. So this is a starting use case in the US. It's in MVP. And there are many other segments that we get to approach exactly in the same way. So you were talking about natural gas, but there are also a lot of applications in green chemicals, green steel, green hydrogen. Basically, all these industries which have a strong link with ESG and with the reporting that they will make and the claims that they will make for sustainability, whether these are carbon credit claims or carbon offsets or removal claims, or whatever green certificates, to basically justify how low of carbon intensity is there in their product. So yeah.
That are you just out of curiosity? So it sounds like you're focusing on the MRV part of the challenge, and maybe even the standards that go into that. Is that kind of the focus there?
Yeah, that's exactly that. So the project comes out of a joint venture between a biofuel producer in the US, which is Gevo, and Block Size Capital, which is a digital asset tech company. So basically building technology platform mainly for institutional banking and capital markets. But they have interesting capabilities for tokenization, smart contract, and also bridging with the future of tokenized commodities, which are very highly interesting in the markets nowadays, right? So the project emerges out of this joint venture, which I think is a quite interesting combination so not only focus on the MRV, which is the first step, but also bridge it with tokenization capabilities in the future. Because obviously you want to bridge it and to offer it to potential buyers, right?
I'm very interested in sharing a little bit about the work that we're submitting for the gas flaring, because the very part of that is kind of a tokenization network that Bertrand, who is going to join the call, was going to maybe speak about a little bit, but it looks like he's not on there yet. Okay, well, thank you very much, Lucas. Looking forward to your presentation. And then I'm going to see, I see Al Fahimi Touhir. Please share a little bit about yourself and how you actually pronounce your name, because I think I probably just butchered it. And how you heard about the SIG.
Okay, hello everybody. I hope you can hear me very well.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, because I'm in Morocco and my internet is not so good.
Coming in very clear.
Okay, if you hear me very quickly, that's perfect.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm a student in computer science. I just finished my master degree on cloud computing and software development. And the project was about Hyperledger Fabric. It was about building a network that let universities and schools to certify and add their credentials and papers in the blockchain. So I spent like 3 to 4 months trying to put things together and build that up. And then at the end, it was not so bad. And then I followed Hyperledger on LinkedIn, and I just saw about you today. And then I was like, okay, we'll just get there and see what we get. So that's why I'm here.
Great. Yeah, we're the cool kids on the block, and welcome.
Okay.
In all seriousness, the work that we're doing is pretty exciting. And the interesting thing about the climate action and accounting special interest group is that our work often bridges across much of the other work of the other SIGs. So we're finding that it's been really fun to start working across different special interest groups, and we welcome you, and we're excited to have you. So thank you for joining. I don't see anybody else's hand raised, so I'm going to assume that there's nobody else on the call. It's new. Okay. Okay. So before we hop into the presentation that Lucas is going to give, I wanted to do a little bit of quick housekeeping, just to flag a couple things that were important that were coming up. The first is the Hyperledger Foundation Mentorship Program. This is an opportunity for anybody who has a project that they're working on to submit that project to the Hyperledger Foundation for consideration for the mentorship program. The mentorship program is funded, so these are paid mentorships. If you do it, I highly recommend focusing the mentorship on development projects, because those are the ones that are oftentimes the most difficult to recruit for. So if you have something that you want built and you need some more support, take a hard look at that. The proposals are due by March 9th. In addition, number two, another area of support for any projects that you're working on is the Hyperledger Challenge. Submissions are due March 1st. It's a link there. This is a really good opportunity to, I would describe it as kind of a prolonged hackathon. There are 3 different stages where you go through ideation, you go through, I think, kind of prototyping, and then you go through development, and all the way through. The Hyperledger Foundation has mentors and different support to kind of move you through the process as you kind of qualify to move to the next stage. They have a group of people that are kind of assessing and seeing which projects progress. So it's not automated that you're definitely going to go all the way through. You need to put something out that is competitive with all the other good ideas that are out there. But very good opportunity for getting a lot of support, getting kind of a lot of awareness around your project. Moving some things forward. The next meeting I wanted to flag, we've got a really interesting presentation coming up from the BC government and the Open Earth Foundation. They're building an emissions tracking around carbon accounting for mining with the British government. So this is, real world use of the technology. As most of you might know, Martin Weinstein was from the Open Earth Foundation, actually was the founder of this special interest group. And so really excited to see what Martin has been doing over the past couple months, or I would say year, with the British government. I've been hearing a lot about it, but I haven't really had a chance to kind of see the nuts and bolts of how it's working. So highly recommend that one on March 8th. The last thing I wanted to mention for the Hyperledger Challenge Summit, we do actually have a project that's been submitted by this special interest group. And I'll just kind of pull it up real quick. I'm working on it, so I'm pretty excited about it. But essentially, it is the idea is to help to begin developing a registry for tracking carbon emissions, both tracking carbon emissions, but also the activities that are decreasing them in the gas fuel supply chain, beginning with the gas flaring. And so it provides us an opportunity to kind of build not only the distributed leverage technology that will be able to kind of capture that emissions across multiple steps in the scope 3 supply chain, but it's also going to allow us to begin working to begin kind of developing expertise around kind of establishing standards within this very specific industry, and all the things that go into measuring, reporting, and verifying that. So these are all kind of critical pieces of the puzzle. And so we've submitted this for consideration for the Hyperledger Challenge. We've also submitted it for a pilot initiative that's being sponsored by Vera, the standards body. And so in the process of talking to potential corporate sponsors, or not corporate sponsors, but partners that would be willing to work with us in the kind of oil and natural gas industry, so we can really kind of get our arms around the problem. But that is it. I'm looking to see if Bertrand is on, because Bertrand,
yeah.
All right, I didn't see you on there, so I'll let you speak to a little bit, because this is really something that Bertrand has been spearheading.
I'm sorry, Sherwood, was a little late to the call. I just signed on now. Sorry, I'm calling in from a later time zone.
That's all right.
Now. But
all right.
I guess just to give a little background on what this project's for and why we're doing it. So the sort of motivation for this project, it gets to this challenge that's called value chain reporting. So people have often heard about scopes and scope 3. And this project's is sort of intended to help a dialogue, get a conversation started, but also building tools to look at how you track emissions. In the case of this specific project, like Sherwood talked about, waste emissions in a fuel supply chain. And these are things like, an oil and gas well, they'll flare gas or they'll leak methane. People may have heard about this. It can be a major source of global emissions. So looking at that as a sort of first sort of step in the supply chain. But the tooling that we're building is to look at this broader problem of then tracking emissions, not just from the production of oil and gas, but then the production of energy-intense commodities, like derived commodities like cement and steel that use fuels like oil and gas, and tracking those embedded emissions or value chain scope 3 emissions through the supply chain. So we've been building some tools, taking elements that the team members of the SIG have already built with this open source operating system for climate action, and sort of creating the tracking logic and infrastructure for it, so-called smart contracts, built as a layer 2 on top of a blockchain network. So yeah, that's what we're doing, and this is our POC to sort of show that it's practical. It can be used for a real world problem like managing waste emissions. In a fuel network.
Great, Bertrand, thank you. That was a really clear description, much better than I did. So thank you for that.
No problem. I've been working on it for a while. So. Yeah.
All right, great. So I don't see any questions. So I think we'll hop right into the presentation. So Lucas, I'm not even going to try your last name because is that Zaehringer?
That's okay. Zaehringer. Yeah.
Zaehringer. Okay, yeah. So he's going to be presenting on positive blockchain IO. Really interesting. This is an open directory and community exploring applications of blockchains in the SDG space. So really excited to kind of hear about the work that he's doing. Also doing work with Verity Tracking around MRV, which we're all interested in. So I'll let you take it away, Lucas. And
Sure.
thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. And from what I've heard in the past few minutes, it seems it's really well aligned with the area I'm digging in right now. And yeah, really happy to connect and explore further, synergies in these areas. So today I'm not going to focus so much on the Verity and MRV, but rather talk about positive blockchain. It's something I've been involved in the past 3 years. And again, I'm really sorry for the setup. I had a laptop crash about an hour ago, and I appreciate Robin or whoever is on the background displaying the slides. So next slide, please. Oh. Okay, next slide.
Next, yeah.
Okay, great. So what about today? So I'm going to tell you shortly about positive blockchain, a little bit of facts or what have we learned in the blockchain and social and environmental impact. But I also want this to be quite practical for people to, it's a community. So it should be also open for people to take action, use the data we have, use the directory, build on it, get your projects on board. I would be happy to list many more projects that are actually leveraging Hyperledger technologies for social and environmental impact, because I think they are not necessarily very well flagged or visible in the directory, and that'd be great. But also sharing other call to actions. One of the topics that was mentioned in the introduction is about mining, and we have an upcoming contribution to the Kinshasa Blockchain Week in Republic Democratic of Congo. And actually, of course, mining, as you may know, is one of the cases they may be interested to look at. And then you also mentioned about codes of conduct and principles that apply to Hyperledger. And we believe it's something quite missing in the blockchain for good space overall, across different technologies, across different organizations. And we'd like to kickstart an initiative around building principles for positive blockchain, or call it blockchain for good. We are not set on the title yet. And this is surely something where some of you can get involved as well. Next slide. Yep, next slide, please. Right, so positive blockchain started with a strong base in Europe, but also more and more global contributors as a non-profit. It's legally an association, so non-profit community, open database, media platform exploring blockchain in the SDGs. Currently, we have exactly 1,150 projects and startups that are registered on the directory, and this is one of the main work we've done. Obviously, we've done also a lot of events, webinars, different projects, writing reports, doing research projects, supporting talk and also publishing a little bit of content so that people get more aware of the application of this technology for social good. Yeah, next slide. The community is powered by people for people, right? So there is no like major corporation or technology partner behind. We are all volunteers, and we also invite anybody else to join as contributor or as ambassadors. I would say half of the people are already in the blockchain space, and the rest are probably working in social impact area, you know, public institutions and things like this. So that gives a interesting mix of crowd, which tries to work on the mission of organizing the web of knowledge in blockchain for good. Next slide. Yeah, and so how do we start it? So basically, I think we started mainly to fall in love with the problem and not the solution. So we don't see, you know, blockchain as being applied for whatever problem out there, but or not focusing on technology first, but rather focusing on what are the issues that people, society at large, and organization are facing, whether it's related to trust, you know, intermediaries, efficiencies, services that they don't get access to. And I think we really have to take this into consideration when starting a blockchain venture or blockchain project in the social good space, is fall in love with the problem. On the next slide, you see that some of these problems are still really present today. So I don't want to dig too much into these details, because I guess you're all aware of the SDGs and some of the burning issues that we still have in this ecosystem. You see some of the figures here in terms of access to insurance, access to electricity services, cost of remittances globally. And this is really the way we have started also in order to map the blockchain applications out there to structure them in issues faced by the people. Next slide. Obviously, I think, you know, by now, everybody, especially if you've been in these calls and involved in the blockchain technology for a while, you have explored application across multiple areas. And I will explain a bit later on the way we have structured it in the directory. But obviously, you find applications that have been piloted across multiple areas. I selected in the next slide a couple of them, just also to explain where did we get the inspiration from, and which project did we see as having a potential impact. And you can go to the next slide. Some of these projects are actually pretty old, and actually this one that you see right now, mobilized construction, is even aborted. So we saw many projects popping up in 2016, 17, 18 with great ideas, you know, to change the world in a way that actually some of them haven't succeeded. But I think it's interesting to look back at it, because many of these ideas behind the projects are very valid today. And many new technologies, when we talk about the DeFi, you know, the DAOs, the regenerative agricultural finance movements, are kind of enabling this project to really take scale and happen today. So this one is one of a personal inspiration. It's a case in Kenya. It's actually an entrepreneur from New York who decided to live in Kenya and realized the road infrastructure is pretty bad over there. So the idea of that project was to collect road data through sensors that you would place on a motorbike or ambulances or public cars, and basically map out whenever there's issue on the road. So you see it on the sensor with a bump on the road. Because usually you have the World Bank and big institutions, they would come and do 50 kilometers of road, which is very, very costly. And this is not what you need. What you need is to identify the critical points on the map and get the work for local entrepreneurs, and not get basically German consultants and Chinese construction companies, if I can simplify it that way. So that was really the intent. Display this on the map, issue a smart contract locally, which could be funded by micro PPPs with the local communities, and then get a decentralized application for the verification of the good quality work. So local community can use an app and basically assess the quality of that work. And I think we still get to see some of these projects more and more in the future, whether it's on infrastructure, construction, on healthcare, using the same models. And for me, that was quite inspiring. And you can go to the next slide. And this is a little bit similar. Some of you guys may be aware of the work of Julian Sierko at Proof of Impact, which he left by now. But these guys were some of the early organizations to think of how to decentralize the MRV process in forestation and afforestation projects. You know, how do you get people to use applications to record data on trees in local forests and spread it around a decentralized network of verifiers? Also using things like a Google Capture for people on their phone to basically comment and assess what they are seeing about the good health of a specific forest or specific tree. I've been also quite inspired by these personally. Also, the work that the Open Forest Foundation is recently doing, and these guys are, I think, starting last year. But there are many more projects in that space. They're basically taking exactly the same approach, especially for carbon market, for nature-based solution, and natural capital preservation. So yeah, quite interesting projects to look at, and these are definitely some of the examples that we track in the database. You can go to the next ones, and I will not stop too long. I mean, 2015 and 16, I started to read about blockchain on, you know, for carbon deposit and carbon credits, and somehow nothing much happened in the past 4 or 5 years, right? Well, we had Nori in the US. You had a couple of projects out there, and I think since about a year, there's a complete boom. And I myself now have a lot of difficulties to track the number of projects which are trying to use DLTs, you know, for this market. And I think it's really encouraging. But yeah, this is why it's super interesting to follow these trends and look at what are the technology and what is the level of maturity of this technology that will really help the real adoption. A project like KlimaDAO and Toucan Protocol, they could have been designed 4 years ago, but they are only maturing now and spreading to the mass because people have access to this technology, to the DAO, the DeFi ecosystem starts to build up, and I think these are really good things. Next slide. So you can go to the, oh yeah, I'm sorry, there were a few animations, but I guess we don't have to explain this. So you can go to the next slides more less quickly. These are some of the examples of all the projects that we got inspired from, and also to show that all of these cases are pretty old, but they are showing where the market is moving right now in terms of blockchain for social good. So we saw traceability of fish in the supply chain, yeah, plastic banks, bounties networks, mobilizing people for good cause, which is basically what DAOs are doing. And all of this is basically to say that the ideas of today are the big successes of tomorrow. Again, many of the projects that I just showed before, they were like, you know, initial talks and pilot and ideas 4 or 5 years ago. And these were some of the first projects that I got on the database about 3.5 years ago. And some of them didn't succeed, but some of them are getting traction and becoming big today. So my message for you is that if you're working on some of these small ideas and planting a seed, it's definitely going to help to solve big problems. But it may take time, but it's definitely be successful in the future. So next slide. From my perspective and looking at the blockchain database, and I will give a little bit more insight about the database. These are, let's say, the hot topics that you can see on the slides, and I'd be interested to know if you see it the same way. But you know, looking at 1,000 projects at a time or 2,000 projects at a time, this is more or less how we have seen the topics maturing gradually. So financial inclusion, the next big topic was supply chain traceability. Then, of course, you had maturation of digital identities as being a key enabler across all use cases. And more lately, we've talked a lot about natural asset conservation, you know, NFT for impact, NFT for good, and all these initiatives, they're also falling in that space. NFT for preservation. There's the Arknote in Europe. They're also selling NFTs so that you can buy some preservation land on the Greenland. So some of these ideas are emerging right now. I think another big topic that we have right now is self-organized and self-protecting communities. Like that could be for the common goods or for civic good in general in society, and this is enabled by the DAOs. And the big topic, I think, for 2022 and the next years, it's going to be refi. You see it spreading everywhere with communities trying to experiment with regenerative agriculture, regenerative finance. It's also kind of overlapping with the two previous boxes, but this is not like, let's say, scientific, but it's more on my personal observation of where the big trends going throughout the years. And please feel free to comment or ask or tell me if you totally disagree, because what I'm saying is wrong. Next slide. By the way, I think you have the link of the slide in the chat, and it can be posted later on. There are some links which are included later on for the calls to action. So feel free to check it out and explore for yourself. As of today, you can download this database on the website. There are a lot of mapping that are accessible out there to kind of map the ecosystem of blockchain for good. But sometimes I think they're a bit limited in terms of the data and the categorization they do, in a way that it doesn't really enable real research to be made. So it's good to be, like a big ID chart or like a knowledge graph where you see how the projects relate. But the work that we've tried to do is to collect many more data on the technology used, the headquarter, the year of creation, who's the founder, where do they have the implementation projects, and so on. And this is a starting point for many research projects, whenever it comes from universities or think tanks, research institutes. So we definitely invite you to join the effort and put projects on the database, help us also learn more from the database, because there's a lot of analytics and learnings that we can get out of it. Perhaps explore more visualization tools to understand the trends in this ecosystem. Out of this database, and again, you can download it today and do your own work. We have about 53 projects that are active today. It means all the rest are aborted or ended or pivoted. And I think that's the reality of the startup space. So from all the projects we started to track in 2016, 17, 18, and so on, we already have 47% closed. And I think this is not rubbish. This is actually really interesting information to keep to understand, why they closed, what are the difficulties, what are some of the concepts that were perhaps too early, like mobilized construction, that we can take in the future. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so you can see here 14 categories. So this is the way the database is structured, and 57 subcategories. You see on the right, the gray box, the way it's structured for climate and environment. And obviously, there's a lot of improvement to be made in the database itself. So again, if anyone is interested in this work, please feel free to reach out to us. But as for now, you can at least download, use it, understand the trends, identify projects that you want to benchmark, and that's it. Okay, next slide. Thank you for the comment in the chat, by the way. Yeah, one of the examples of the outcome is also to publish reports. This is also something available that we've done with DGen, which is a think tank on decentralization. We interviewed about 25 experts working across different cases and different projects. So yeah, if you want to learn more and have a more like qualitative or detailed approach, I suggest this report. We're preparing another one also on blockchain for good with much more updated data and cases that will be published, I think, in 1 or 2 weeks with partners and universities in France. It's going to be in French and English. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so that's just again, I had to take we just uploaded a new version of the database, I think yesterday or a few days ago. So we keep publishing newer versions, and I just made a quick charts before my laptop crashed in the afternoon about the visualization of projects out there. So you see there are quite a lot in healthcare, logistics, trustability, identity and ownership, agriculture and food, which is a space that is definitely booming right now. Next slide. Yeah, that's a little bit about headquarters. I think that's something we have to explore a little bit more, because sometimes you have projects that are completely decentralized, so they don't really identify with a specific headquarter. And also, it's interesting to look at the country of operations of this project. So where do they have their implementation projects, right? Or they're working on like in the US, or is it like a New York startup that is active in Kenya, right? So we see all of that. We're trying to structure the data a little bit better to be able to display this kind of trend and interlink in the future. But as you can see, for now, there are a lot in the USA, there are a lot in Europe, and these are some of the main countries. We may have a bias by, sometimes having access to subsets of data that are a bit closer to our region or closer to specific technologies or specific industries whenever we have research projects. But that's, ongoing development. And here we have the headquarter data on 945 projects. So I think it's pretty representative, at least for the subset we have. Okay, next one. Yeah, we have an ongoing research project. We're also involving French universities, where we also want to understand, the link between technology and industry of applications or areas of application. That could also help to understand why, one technology would be, I don't know, more relevant for healthcare than another. Perhaps there's interesting learning about this. This is ongoing. Obviously, we observe that many projects move across technologies. Many are agnostics. Many are using different blockchain technology. At the end of the day, sometimes it's not really what matters the most for them. But I think when you work on the technology side, it's perhaps an information that's relevant. And also, as I said, I would like to have a bigger representation of Hyperledger. That would be great. So if there are people here willing to contribute with more data sets, that'd be great. Okay, next slide. Yeah, and I just finished with few calls to action. Feel free to, propose any improvement about the database itself. Do research. We have universities, and it's pretty much starting since last year, but they want to do researches based on the database. Sometimes it's more financial data that they're looking at. Sometimes it's about management and of organization, like in a management point of view. What does blockchain change in the way companies and people are collaborating? And that's a field of management studies that doesn't have looked at the blockchain so closely, especially now that we're talking about Web3 and DAOs. It's going to change a lot on the way people collaborate, value is being created. Unimo in Italy is the example of a university looking at this, and they're doing this, they're starting their research based on the database. So that's the first call to action, and it's really open for ideas. The next one. So the next one is about the Kinshasa Blockchain Week. It's not official yet. I'm talking again tomorrow with a representative of Democratic Republic of Congo. As some of you may know, they have started digital roadmap for 2025. In Africa, you have some countries like Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, they have taken a much more proactive step since a few years already to define the strategy for blockchain, and Congo is really behind. The good news is that they can learn from many other projects and many other countries, whether it's in Africa or in Europe or in other regions. And the call to action here is to contribute. So if you go to the slide and you click on the this button for contributing below, normally you will pop up. You will see the survey where you can put your name on some use case that you would like to present over there. This should be in June 6 to 12, and there will be a little bit more announcement on it probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But you can already sign up, as I said, to stay in touch. Recommend any case, any project, any ecosystem partner. It would be great to have a sort of representation of Hyperledger as well in terms of technology provider. I mean, especially the working groups which are working on some of the nice use case. So when looking at the priority areas, Congo has, as a country, obviously many challenges, but the discussions we've had so far, they include challenges in land titling, right? So ownership, property titles, public registries in general, energy systems, mining, global trade, education. So these are some of the areas that have been mentioned, and they will be a bit more refined to help structure the blockchain week. Next one. Yeah, and the last one is about principles in blockchain for good. We've had struggle ourselves to define blockchain for good, and people don't like to use blockchain. People don't like to use for good. Sometimes people, they see IBM tracking Mango on the blockchain, and they tell us, oh, that's bullshit. It's not for good. So yeah, we're hearing everything. I think we're here to try to raise awareness and do a little bit of knowledge in that space. But we would indeed, I think everyone would benefit a lot to have these kind of guiding principles. What should we look for whenever we come to design and deploy blockchain applications in the SDGs? What are our values and our principles to follow in terms of like user experience, user inclusion, in terms of sustainability or eco consumption or energy consumption of the blockchain we use, in terms of ethical guidelines. So there are a lot of topics, I think, to address. And we're starting a process that will take about 3 or 4 months with different stages, including workshops, surveys. And we try to be also inclusive as much as possible of different groups. So it's not per se a positive blockchain initiative, although we're kickstarting it. It's going to be something neutral behind which many organizations could stand. And I also propose to Robin that I think the work that you guys do is pretty much aligned, and it would be great to have a representation of your voice in this call for interest. Yeah, that's it for me. I'm happy if there are any questions. Again, really happy that you guys took the time. And if we can make a small difference with some of the volunteering time our people have, that's amazing. Thank you. Okay, are there any questions? Looking at the chat.
Stuart, you're still muted.
Say it again.
And thank you so much, Lucas. I said Stuart, you're still muted.
Yeah, I was still muted, Lucas. Thank you. I have a lot of questions, but I'll just start with one. So one of the things that when I look at all these different projects within the database that I kind of think about as far as the SIG is, are there opportunities, are there tools, are there ways for collaboration, for information sharing? For example, I think about governance, right? The database itself has a lot of different organizations that are using different technology platforms. So while it might not always be possible to kind of collaborate in that way, are there ways for people to share best practices about what's working for them, kind of developing a good governance approach to different projects?
That's a great idea, and actually we started to collect more about that. We started to have a FAQ for each project, also to understand what's your change theory. What do you want to see change in the world, right? What's your impact data? So we started to add more and more, but then we realized it's a mess because when you want to do it at scale, at the level of a directory of 1,200 projects, it's really difficult to keep track of that. So just to explain, it's fully transparent that we took a step back and say, let's focus on quantitative data that will help, map where we are right now. And definitely we want to go with more qualitative data. So, best practices, returns of experience, what works or not, like impact related data as well. I think that'd be really excellent. And I think that's also the way people can use the database. And I'm not saying this has to stay on the database, but somehow, and we've had a lot of universities or people doing research, they're like, okay, where do I start? And I'm like, oh, take the database, make your subset of 50 projects and get in touch with them and then find it out. And we are interested to get this information back. So on the website, we also have a database of papers, like research papers, which have been done in the blockchain for good space. So and I think this is the way we want to channel it back. Obviously, we have also like our own capacity and resources and can't do everything. So I think our first step is really to focus on good, like, good quantitative data on the directory and let people add more qualitative layer. And but yeah, I think that's what everybody is looking at. And I remember 2018 or 19 also we were working with the GIZ on the supply chain of cotton, which is, by the way, a project where IBM is still involved. Together with GIZ, it's the German development agency. And we collaborated with them, and they were also asking exactly the same question, like, okay, hey, Lucas, we have this project in supply chain in the textile industry. So what are the best projects out there and what can we learn from them? Like the way they design, the way they make impact, the way they reach, the audience and so on. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. But it's difficult also because at that time, you still had a lot of startups, they were just starting. Like they don't have data, they don't have impact data. They're doing a pilot, they're doing an MVP that doesn't say anything about the way they're reaching scale or the way they're better than others. So yeah. And I think it's a good time now because now you see that many projects are maturing and we get to learn more. And I'm really glad that I see a lot of research, a lot of papers, a lot of studies, interviews, of course, webinars and so on. And I think that's the package we need. Ideally, we need to structure the way we learn from them, in terms of ecosystem. And whenever you want to jump in that field, you know where to get the information. And again, we're open to ideas for that.
No, I think you answered my question. I mean, essentially what I was trying to angle at was how do I help the members of this STIG use and participate? And I think the answer is using the database to find projects that are similar to the challenge that you're facing and just reach out to them and have conversations if they're 2 or 3 years ahead of you, or what the issues are going to be, how did they get participation, what were their steps towards governments, how did they design the system? And sounding like it's an open, collaborative community, you're much more highly likely to have somebody be willing to take the time to kind of help you out and point you in the right direction. So it's just a level of collaboration that's super useful. And I think we'll definitely add it to the SIG resource page and maybe kind of incorporate that as kind of a step to consider as people are developing projects, and certainly kind of submit some of the different active projects that we have. Because it allows us to have other people reach out to us who are trying to tackle the same problem. So yeah, very useful, very interesting.
So, and just to answer one of the questions that pops up in the chat related to this, there is indeed the Refi DAO, and I'm on the Telegram channel. I'm on the Discord as well, and I see the work that Xavier is doing at the Refi DAO and all the other people, and I think it's amazing. And actually, these guys are, I think they're really like in the Web3 space. They're adopting also great visualization tools, as I see, for the database itself, which I think is amazing. So we're in touch, and the idea is also to incorporate their data in the global directory. But I think the way they intend to do it, again, like the way I saw it right now, it's an overall mapping where you have tags and you see the way projects relate to tags. Or once you want to know a little bit more and do, like more trend analysis or more analytics, it's for now it's a little bit limited. And of course, it's difficult layer, but that's the way we try to approach it. But yeah, also our goal is to, because we know this work of directory and listing project is being done by, the Ethereum Foundation, the Hyperledger Foundation, the Cardano Foundation. So everybody is doing the work. ReFi is not doing it within ReFi. So ideally, everybody work together to pull all the data they're collecting in the similar database, so that we have a general view. And this is, I think, where positive blockchain is fitting. Yeah. Cool. I don't know if there are any more questions, but I'm happy to, get in touch with anyone who would like to engage a little bit more with blockchain. I think
I definitely have more questions. For positiveblockchain.io, what's been the most successful for you in building awareness for the initiative, getting the word out?
About positive blockchain itself?
Yes.
I like that question. It's a good question. To be honest, I think where we had the biggest momentum was when we were, and it doesn't speak for global asynchronous collaboration, but it's when we had all our meetups in Berlin. That was excellent. So we were the tribe lead for blockchain for social impact at Impact Hub, which is a big co-working and acceleration for social impact and social entrepreneurs. Yeah. And we did, I think, about 12 meetups within a year or year and a half, so almost once per month. And we always had like 200 300 signups. Wow. And what was really interesting is that what we were trying to do is to get people from technology and people outside the technology. Right, so it was not like a pure Web3 workshop or conference. It's not DEF CON, it's not ETH Denver. It was something else. So we were, for example, getting people from the institution responsible for the database of Passport in Germany, right? So these guys, they represent the establishment, but they know how Passport is done. And we were bringing tech startups in the digital identity space, and we organized that panel to basically, have a rich debate, not only from the technology perspective, but confront it with the social impact or, public service perspective. I think that was really impactful. People liked it a lot. It was very rich in the way we could dig more in the quality and learn from the projects. So, yeah. And now we are like, hey, we want the events back, but everybody is fully online so far. But I think this is working well, and having ambassadors out there is another great thing that we're developing as well. So we know that many people cannot be full-time contributing in your community or organization. They cannot build the database. They cannot spend time to crunch data or whatever, or build a website, but they are connected. They talk to many people out there. They go to conferences, and I think these are great connectors to connect in that space.
I'm assuming for the ambassadors, do you have a page that I could look at that could describe, for example, if I wanted to become an ambassador, what's involved, what to do, structure?
We are preparing it. Preparing it, but yeah, because we've had a lot of contributors who came in. So right now we have about 30 contributors, but I think we had 30 others, which at some point they came in positive blockchain to contribute. And you know how it is. It's the same on Discord, it's the same on Telegram, it's the same in all these communities. They come, they are active for a month, and then they go. And I think we learned a lot from that, like what keeps people motivated, what keeps them engaged.
Yes.
So from my experience, I think communities that do it really well, they mobilize people on very concrete projects at the end. right? For example, I see it. I follow a bit Cardano community, the way they engage people on the project catalyst, so different funding rounds for supporting projects out there and also funding them basically. I think it's well made because people have like a very concrete assignment, very concrete projects to work on. And this helps to, channel conversation, collaboration, and so on, because otherwise you're not sure that it's going to match the interest of people behind specific initiative, and then people go. Yeah.
Sure. I think it's two short questions, or hopefully short. So one is maybe just a clarification for me. I was wondering, you were talking about focusing on collecting quantitative data for the database rather than qualitative. I was wondering if you give me an example of what type of quantitative data that you're collecting. I guess I need to dig a little bit more myself to see what you guys have. And the second question was, so I imagine you're building, essentially, you're managing this database of all these, blockchain for good entities. Have you thought of like creating some sort of system where it's something like a DAO, where you could then allow entities that you're entering to this database to start managing or interacting with it in some way, like updating entries? I don't know. I have to have a better understanding of what you're actually collecting, but have you thought about that?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. So the data we're collecting is so categories, subcategories, SDG, headquarter, technology used, year of foundation or launch year, technology used. I said it. That's the type of data. Description, short description, long description, links. And we added a couple of more like secondary data, for example, user base, I think is interesting, number of project that gives an idea of the scale and the size of the project. But a lot of this data, it's very, very quickly outdated. So we decided to focus on a core set of data, data that doesn't move every 3 months as well. And I know people want to know much more. Give me the funding information, like how the project gets funded and what are the tokens and so on. But for the moment, this is what we have. And I mean, you can look it up indeed for yourself. If you go on the website, you can download. It's an XLS. It's an Excel file that you download where you see the data. We're having a project right now where we are like rethinking collaboration and like not API, because that's not what we're talking about, but how do people access the data, have editing rights, can help enrich and qualify the database further, and also visualize it. So we used to have our WordPress workflow to enable that. We cancel a number of these features for basically, as a project owner, you can own your page and edit your project directly for a number of reasons, but we would like to get back to it. And to reply your second question on the DAO, and yeah, many people came with the idea of also within Positive Blockchain, using a token and incentivize, data contribution, whether it's from the project or from outside, and doing it as a DAO. So yeah, these are all great ideas on the table. I think so far we've lacked a little bit, perhaps resources and time to really make it happen. Although we know it could help automize and create more incentives for the database. So eventually it could help increase the impact. So if you guys have an idea, or if you think, Hyperledger could support to actually make it happen, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, creating that sort of second layer automation, or you getting into more technical issues where I can understand it's difficult. I might have some ideas, but I think based on the data that you're collecting, it sounds like a really good seed or starting point for setting up an identity registry for these companies. And you get not even necessarily creating a token for incentive programs, but just an identifier that then companies can use to say, okay, this identifies us, and you can use that to keep track of what we're doing. Now, how that's used is more technical, but just creating the I don't know if you do it as a DID, so to speak, but it can be the seed for something like that. It's based on the initial data points you've collected.
No, definitely. And now we're building, like, we're designing our data tables basically for the database itself, like user types, all the project information as well, like you would do on a more like MySQL approach. But at least it gives a little bit of structure, and then you can plug whatever on top, right? On the front end, on the back end, you can add few processes for login, identifying a project, because then we have reference ideas. You can give access to the project to participate to, I don't know, like an award or competition. And then you can create some incentives for people to share more data and learnings and knowledge around the directory. So that'd be great. And again, I think many people came with different ideas to positive blockchain. Some people also said, yeah, you can use it as a label, as a kind of certification to then, it's like Instagram approved. You could get the same with positive blockchain. But these are all future topics. And as a community of volunteer, we got to make sure we have enough capacity and resources to make what we do happen, right?
Thanks for sharing. It's all very interesting.
Thanks a lot.
Well, we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank you so much, Lucas, for coming and sharing. Definitely excited to kind of get involved, obviously, with the projects that we're doing and explore what you have, and thank you for your work. I mean, this is a really great service, and for me, it's a great way to kind of get visibility into people who are playing in our space, and help kind of build. Essentially what we're building is a multi-stakeholder community and a bunch of people tackling the different problems. So this is a very critical piece. So I thank you so much. I don't see any other questions. Does Lucas have anything else to add? Thank you so much.
That's good. You guys can reach out to me, and I'm also happy to contribute further in this group. As I see, we have a lot of touching points, so I'll be happy to stick around and join future calls and contribute the way I can. And happy to talk to some of you and let you guys click on the call to actions to join the different initiatives. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to having you. Looking forward to collaborating.
Unfortunately now I need to repair my laptop.
We'll let you get to that. Thank you for presenting in the midst of that catastrophe. We appreciate that. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All righty.
Thank you so much, Lucas.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.